Hi, thanks for tuning into Desert Euphonies. This is Joel. I was surprised to learn that even after the Romans destroyed the Jewish kingdom in 70 CE, causing 2,000 years of life in exile for the Jewish people, there was still a king of the Jews, a descendant of David, ruling from Babylonia well into the Middle Ages. But who were these kings of captivity? Who were the Exilarchs? No one is certain when these kings began their rule. The first historical record is in the Parthian or Persian Empire in 200 CE, but one later chronicler, writing in the 9th century CE, states the very first Exilarchs emerge much earlier. When the Babylonians conquered the Jewish kingdom, they forced King Jeconiah and 3,000 other Jewish nobility into captivity in Babylon. This chronicle states that when Jeconiah was brought into the Babylonian court, he was placed in charge of the city's Jews, becoming the first exilarch in 597 BCE. The Babylonians were conquered by the Persians, and the exiled Jewish community prospered. Many of Persia's cities actually had Jewish majorities, and Jewish trade prospered, and its religious leaders became very highly educated. To lessen friction between the Jews and their Persian rulers, the emperors used the exilarchs as intermediaries, knowing that their old blood descended from David would give them legitimacy among the Jewish population. The Jewish community enjoyed a great deal of autonomy, and the exilarchs were given significant powers. To a great extent, the Jewish community and its government functioned as a state within a state. For example, they ran and supervised their own markets. They provided protection against fraud by verifying weights and measures, and they also provided armed security in the markets as well as in the walls of their cities. They built, funded, and administered Jewish hospitals, schools, public baths, cemeteries, and synagogues. Most importantly, the Jews were allowed to manage their communities along the lines of Jewish religious law. The exilarchs presided over the schools, which furnished the semi independent kingdom with thousands of judges and legal scholars. The Jewish courts were permitted to have a criminal whipped, imprisoned, or excommunicated. Only the power to execute a criminal was held separately by the Persian state. In cases when the exilarchs could not count on the religious courts to preserve order, such as when a rabbi demanded the exilarchs acknowledge they served at the rabbi's discretion rather than the other way around, the Persian rulers could back the exilarchs, whose power they needed to keep intact so as to work as an effective middleman. They would often use the judicious use of capital punishment in those cases. The exilarchs, in turn, supplied their Persian masters with tax revenue and the occasional army of reliable Jewish troops, their primary duty being to keep their own Jewish subjects obedient to the Persian emperor. A major sore spot for the rabbis was the additional head tax they were forced to pay as a religious minority, and their opposition became more vocal. The exilarch acted decisively by having the rest of rabbis silenced, knowing that if they did not do their best to keep their subjects in line, the Persians might well inflict the complete devastation on their community that the Romans had done to the rebellious Palestinian Jews a few generations prior. For several centuries, life was very, very good for the exilarchs in the Jewish community in Persia, but the mutual dependency came to an end when a wave of religious radicalism swept through the Persian Empire, causing persecution against their religious minorities. Jewish religious institutions were closed, and the state demanded the power to censor and control the private, personal religious lives of their Jewish subjects as well. Finding this repression completely intolerable, the young Exilarch Marazutra used his power to raise an army in open rebellion. Now, for 7 years, he was able to secure liberty for his tiny Jewish kingdom, but he was eventually defeated by a Persian army and publicly executed. Thus, the Exilarchate came to an end for the next several centuries until it was restored by the Islamic Abbasid Caliphate, a subject for a later video. Well, there it is, my first video on YouTube done in a single recording. Sorry I stuttered and fell out over my words so much, but I just wanted to get something done. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back in the future with another video. The next one will probably be looking at the founding of the Abbasid capital, Baghdad. Have a wonderful day.